speaking about, do our prisons do a good job of rehabilitation? Our corrections facilities such as juvenile justice centres and adult prisons are doing a good job of housing and rehabilitating our prison population is for the most part fictional due to multiple factors such as reoffending rates and the constant outnumbering that the Indigenous continue to have. The reoffending rate in Australia is quite high, with nearly half of those returning to prison in 2020, with the rate being 46%. Though the biggest concern is the Northern Territory, with the highest reoffending rate in Australia being 60.8%. With the Northern Territory being the region of Australia with the highest rate of Indigenous inhabitants, this could be the reason for the significant difference compared to the national reoffending average. The sole reason for this is the Indigenous contributing to a large quantity of those imprisoned in Australia. With them only representing 3% of the population, they contribute to nearly 29% of those inhabited in prison. The number is made much worse in the Northern Territory, where Aboriginals contribute to 84% of those imprisoned. The Indigenous also make up the worst prison population per 100,000, where they contribute to over 1,000 people per 100,000. This is the worst statistic in the world, with America being second, with over 700 per 100,000. Private prisons seem like a great idea. If it costs the government $200 per day to incarcerate someone, and a private company comes along and says they can do it for $150 per day, then why not save the government money while allowing a corporation to profit? The problem lies with the economics behind the prisoners. If prison was perfect in rehabilitating people, then private prisons would go out of business. The question needs to be asked as whether a prison is intended to rehabilitate the individual or is supposed to earn money. If the goal is to earn money, then the system desperately needs to change. The fact that there is a prison that intends to do everything as cheaply as possible to solely focus on profit instead of rehabilitation is simply astonishing. Australian government should definitely consider the elimination of private prisons in Australia. Privately prisons have shown to have increased the rate of depression and suicide rates. Therefore, private prisons treated as a business clearly doesn't work, and there is no chance of rehabilitation. Australia is by no means the worst country when it comes to rehabilitation of prisoners, with America being one of the worst countries in the world with significantly larger percentages than Australia, with the prisoners having a 76% chance of reoffending in the next 5 years. Norway's prison system has multiple aspects that lead to less cases of reoffenders. One of these cases is that Norway has a larger number of prisons in its country to allow the offenders to serve their sentences close to their places of residence, to facilitate visits from friends and family, as well as an easier reintegration into society. Norway's prisons are much more comfortable than other prisons. These prisons also offer many more recreational activities than other prisons such as horse riding, fishing, swimming, and others. The prisons also grant much more leeway and trust in their inmates, which sees a much more safer environment. Committing offences while in prison leaves the inmates at risk of being transferred to a worse one, which incentivizes the inmates to not commit crimes. The inmates are also varied in crimes such as rapists and murderers, but yet they still are offered seminars and counselling to give them the best chance of being rehabilitated. There's a reason why Norway has one of the lowest reoffending rates in the world at being only 20%. This is because the prisons don't aim to punish people for their actions, no matter how heinous they are, but instead try to rehabilitate them, no matter what. Australia has several issues wrong with its prison system. One of them being there are too many privately owned prisons, whereas they should have none due to the format, the prison exclusively existing to profit off inmates, leaving a prison rent as cheaply as possible, leaving out much of the opportunity for inmates to be able to rehabilitate. The second biggest issue is the treatment of Aboriginals. There should be no way that they make up the worst prison population per 100,000 in the world. The government needs to put more time, effort, and money into the prisons where there are high quantities of Indigenous people. Need to offer much more programs and counselling to the property to prepare these people for when they are released. If these things are done in Australia correctly, we would definitely live up to the statement our corrections facilities, such as juvenile justice centres and adult prisons, are doing a good job of housing and rehabilitating our prison population. Thank you.